We just spent a lot of time getting this engine here running, and though we got it running, it got me thinking about all the benefits that a two-stroke brings to the table. Now, I know there are a lot of you out there that have your own list of benefits on why you're still running a two-stroke. Just let us know in the comments below why you are still using yours, while I continue on with what I can come up with as far as all the benefits for a two-stroke. Now, two-stroke outboards receive a lot of hate, and especially with four-stroke outboards being in the market for over 2 decades now, there is a growing number of people out there that don't even know why someone would want a two-stroke in the first place. Reliability in harsh conditions, a high power to weight ratio, cost effectiveness, ease of maintenance, there are a lot of things that we've got to cover, but let's start from the beginning and talk about that high power to weight ratio. You see, two-strokes create power from every stroke or every rotation of the crankshaft. They don't have intake valves, exhaust valves, camshafts, timing chains, rockers, lifters, buckets, valve covers, or even the same types of oil pumps that four-strokes have, which is what makes them so much heavier than the two-stroke. Now, though the four-strokes have come a long way in the weight department, they still have way more moving parts to them than the two-stroke, which is why the two-stroke has so much better of a power-to-weight ratio. Seeing how a four-stroke requires 2 revolutions of the crankshaft to complete a power stroke, you could say that the two-stroke is twice as efficient in producing power when it comes to the amount of strokes that it requires to generate that power. With this type of efficiency, two-strokes are known for having an extremely effective hole shot. They really pop when it comes to quick acceleration, and that's all because of this super efficient power to weight ratio, where the engine is producing power with every stroke that the piston makes up and down, though effectiveness doesn't always equate to efficiency in the fuel consumption department, but more about that in a minute. Not to mention that a heavier engine on the back of a boat designed to have an engine with a specific weight to it, when you change to a heavier engine, this can throw off the performance of that boat and make it ride completely different. And most of the time, this is not in a good way. Now, being lighter, this also makes them ideal for kicker engines. Now, when you add a secondary engine to the back of your boat for trolling or a kicker engine, that weight comes into play because the same problem that you have on the smaller boats with adding too much weight in the back of the boat, this is also a factor here when talking about a kicker engine on the back of your boat next to your main engine as well. But moving on from them just being lighter, with fewer moving parts, the engine's functionality in and of itself is just simpler. When the piston moves down, it pulls new air into the crankcase, and then on the piston's way up, it pulls that new air into the cylinder, pushing the exhaust out of the cylinder and compresses that fuel to air ratio. Bang, light up the spark plug, and that's it. A very simple engine design, which makes them really easy to work on. And being easy to work on is a massive advantage or feature when it comes to saving money. The costliness of ownership and the operation of the engine, if you can work on the engine yourself, you're going to save yourself hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every single year. This is part of the reason why we created a school community in our boaters program, where we teach you all kinds of skills that will help you to be able to work on the engine yourself and give you the support and the accountability to help you get the jobs done. You can check that out at boardandgameboating.com or use the links in the description below or the pinned comment. Now, being older technology and simple to work on and maintain, most people that have some kind of mechanical inclination have no problem doing virtually all the work on their engine themselves. This also makes them relatively easy to diagnose when there is a problem, and because of this, it's pretty well known that globally the two-stroke outboard is still relatively dominant, because as long as it's maintained, it's really reliable in harsh conditions. Where parts, experienced mechanics, and stuff like that isn't readily available, like in remote parts of the world such as islands that don't have a lot of traffic going to them, having a simple engine that is easy to keep running is extremely valuable. There are a lot of places that are pretty secluded, and having a complex engine with a lot of electrical components, sensors, and maintenance items needed to keep it running is not really what you want to run in that situation, making a two-stroke outboard a hot item. With a simple design and easy to diagnose makeup, the cost of maintenance for a two-stroke is usually much lower than that of a four-stroke. Not to mention, with there being so many of them still out there, maintenance parts and items are usually pretty easy to find and buy. Unless you're looking for an obscure part like a carb jet for a 1952 4 horsepower engine, that might be a little bit harder to find, but everything else is pretty simple to get. Things like your spark plugs, the fuel filters, the gear lube, the thermostats are all going to be pretty easy to find and usually not that expensive to buy, which makes it a pretty cost-effective engine to own and operate. If you can keep the engine running yourself and you don't need to pay somebody to work on it, and parts are way cheaper to buy and repair the engine when it needs to be repaired, they are way easier to keep you on the water in a lot of situations. Granted, we're talking about engines that I would consider to be a lower horsepower engine. It's not like you see a 400 horsepower carbureted two-stroke outboard. Usually the highest power two-stroke is like a 300. But some of the major technical advancements in the two-stroke outboard world towards the end of its run were up there in the horsepower range, like Evinrude made the 300 G2, HPI 300, the OX66 250, so it's not like they didn't make higher horsepower outboards, but a lot of the ones that you still see running out there are more like the 90s, the 150s, the 70s. I would consider those to be the lower horsepower ranges. But in the fuel efficiency category, two-strokes were never really known for being that fuel efficient. They could actually probably chalk that up to a con or a disadvantage of the two-stroke, not to mention the added cost of adding the oil to the fuel that you're burning as well. So fuel efficiency, they were pretty costly when it comes to burning fuel. Though with the introduction of direct injection in the late 90s and early 2000s, engines like the HPDIs and the OptiMaxes were actually really known for being extremely fuel efficient. And then above that, when we get into the E-Techs and the G2s, they were also known for being very fuel efficient and did not have near the emissions of older two-strokes, which made them relatively environmentally clean. But with the introduction of fuel injection and these technical advancements, you basically bypass all the previously mentioned benefits, because I don't think there is the average boat owner out there that isn't a professional mechanic of some kind that would say that the OptiMax, the HPDI, the E-Tech, or the G2 are quote-unquote simple engines. All of the engines doubled, if not tripled in complexity with the addition of direct injection of the fuel. Though your fuel efficiency skyrocketed along with the emissions, it's a double-edged sword, as what you lose and what you gain when it comes to the benefits of a two-stroke outboard with these major advancements in the technology of the two-stroke system. When you take away the simplicity of being able to just pull the carburetor off the engine and clean it, and then maybe throw a set of plugs in it when you have a running problem, or just clean off the fouled plugs that you have to get the engine running again, you are removing a massive benefit that you have with a two-stroke outboard. For example, if you're trying to diagnose and repair a running issue with an engine that has 3 fuel pumps and 1200 psi fuel, where it takes fuel from your fuel tank using a diaphragm driven pump and then puts that fuel to a vapor separator tank with an electric fuel pump that then pushes your fuel to a belt driven mechanical fuel pump that amps your fuel pressure over 1000 psi before delivering it to your fuel injectors, which are ran by 2 computers that work with a third computer that runs the rest of your electrical system on the engine, but works in tandem with those 2 injector drivers. Trying to diagnose this, I wouldn't say that Billy Bob is in his driveway trying to figure out this issue on Saturday morning before he's able to go dunk the boat in the water. Or what Juan is doing down in Mexico on a sandy beach on the ocean before taking a group of tourists out to the reef to go sightseeing. So though the engines were extremely fuel efficient, they weren't simple old two-strokes. But they did still keep some of the same benefits outside of that. Massive advantages in the power to weight ratio, extremely powerful hole shots, lighter weight overall, and they even had the added benefit of being much quieter compared to traditional carbureted two-strokes. So the benefits of a direct injected two-stroke are still there, though they weren't as simple, and that is why there are still so many people out there that would much rather run, operate, and own a two-stroke over a four-stroke.